All right. Well, welcome. Thank you, everyone. Happy Friday. Well, I like that it's a smaller group too, and I think also being provider based is also very helpful because I think we can just kind of talk about some of, what the needs are, kind of start planning some things. So hopefully that'll allow us to have a productive conversation. There's a few people trying to log in. Give them a minute. So for SB Act, some of the model that we've used in the past with other regions, it's kind of like a 4-step process of one, know who they are, know everyone by name. And so that's where we are right now with the East Side of just trying to understand how many people are specifically on the East Side and who they are. And then that leads into the second part, which is know what they want, what their needs are, really understanding, how did they come about to being on the streets, being unsheltered, what are those immediate needs that they need, how do we engage them to get connected to HMIS and the CES system if they aren't already, and just really supporting them along those processes. And then which leads to step 3, once we know everyone and know their needs, is how do we secure and align our resources to be able to support that individual. Right now there's a lot of mental health needs, substance use needs. So being able to talk through where those gaps are and what we need to do as a community and as providers to fill those gaps. And then, access to shelter is another one of just how do we get people inside to better engage them and walk them through these processes. And then ultimately housing, we know that housing is always the endpoint. That's the huge gap right now of not having enough housing to really transition people from the street into shelter and then out of shelter into housing. So just talking about long-term investments there. And then which is ultimately step 4 of just expanding the permanent supportive housing that's available. So I keep saying last week, but the last meeting, I had just mentioned that I was trying to work with the county of getting the data from the previous point in time count. So I was able to do that. And so in the last point in time count that was conducted for the East Side region, there was 191 individuals. And then when I was looking at our Rescue Mission NNC data, the Rescue Mission NNC has supported 142 unduplicated clients at one point that have gone to the Rescue Mission to receive some level of service. So that's roughly kind of around the same 190 figure. So I think we still, from PATH's data standpoint, I think you all have identified maybe like 40 consistent individuals. It sounds like just in the short period of time that Odin has started. So, I think we still need to work on kind of identifying what that fixed figure will be in those consistent individuals that are on the East Side, because I think another component is people move around. They might go, and especially in Santa Barbara being such a small community where it could be the East Side and then they migrate to the waterfront and then they migrate to State Street. It's all walkable. And so I think that's where those numbers are going to fluctuate between like the 140, 190. But I think there are still going to be those core individuals that are on the East Side, that are those true East Side kind of residents. So understanding who those individuals are and then really focusing on them to make sure, are they in coordinated entry? If not, as providers between CityNet, PATH, Good Samaritan, how can we get those individuals enrolled and supported through the document ready process? And then ultimately, what shelter availability there is. So that's basically where we are right now. We're working with PATH specifically. I don't know if Odin, if you have access to Fulcrum yet.
Yeah, I do. I just got
Okay.
the app downloaded, and now I should be able to use it within the next few weeks to get a more accurate report of the encampments around the area.
Great. Yeah, and so for everyone, Fulcrum is the app that is used countywide amongst outreach providers, where they are able to, as they're conducting outreach, are able to on their phone live in that moment, drop a pinpoint of where an encampment is, or where an individual is at any given time. And then we're starting to use Fulcrum a little bit more in depth of not just identifying where these encampments are, but we're able to input information on the individual in terms of kind of if they're in HMIS and the coordinated entry system, understanding what housing intervention they're eligible for, and then if they're document ready. And so as outreach, that's really important information to have when you're trying to engage individuals, instead of kind of starting conversations with people and not really understanding their history. And if you have components of their history with you, you're able to have a more meaningful conversation and kind of engage in with what their needs are and have that follow-up. You know, they could see notes that other providers have put in there about, you know, interactions and kind of where things have left off. And so they're able to more easily follow up and, you know, say like, hey, I see that you still need your ID. How can I help you with that? And make those small connections. So really excited that Odin has that. So now that's kind of the next phase of the planning of how, as providers, PATH, CityNet, and Good Samaritan, we can use Fulcrum to kind of start mapping out the east side and really identifying those folks. So with that, we got one more person. I wanted to just jump in. Again, the structuring of the RAPs are really moving into focusing on the immediate needs and getting updates from not just the providers, but working with the city on the encampment reports, as well as hearing from PD on how patrol is going and some of the things that they're encountering as well. So we want to start with Joelle. On the more recent encampment report, specifically to the east side.
Morning, everyone.
Oh, let me make you co-host.
Oh, yes. Are you guys able to see this? That's perfect. All right, so this is from our last Eastside meeting till today, to this morning. And as you can see, there are two. Let's go to this one here. This one, let's see. These two individuals, they were off quarantina. I know it says CityNet was requested, and they did respond. Thank you to Ortiz and his team. I believe I spoke with him yesterday, and I believe he said they were going to move him to PATH yesterday afternoon. My understanding is he's no longer there. And the other one, there was an encampment reported, but we weren't able to locate it either. They didn't give us the right address, the right direction, or, you know, it was just, you know, misunderstood, but there was none there. And those were the only two reports that came in on the east side these last few days. Do you have any questions?
If CityNet can speak to, it sounds like there was a shelter referral. I don't know if you can confirm that.
Yeah, so just our update, based update. So directly to that, we were able to contact, actually it was two individuals at that area, and both of them were able to get sheltered at PATH. Thanks for that. So we were able to respond to that, and that worked best it could be right now, which is getting them into PATH or any shelter, so the encampment can be cleared and cleaned out. Made it to Chase Palm Park. We went to that area and they've done some outreach over there. We will be in the bird refuge area today, this afternoon. So we'll be able to provide an update on that. We also spoke to someone yesterday at East Beach. So we're able to engage with the client, one individual out there looks to hopefully become a client. So they scheduled an appointment to follow up and meet with that individual, again, to do an intake. And then we do have like I said, the 2 shelter community requests through the link that, like I said, we did make it out to contacted, like Joel said, that one had a really good result. Other than that, we'll be out there every Monday with our 2 staff members. And I know they've been connecting with Odin. So that's very much appreciated, and that's working out very well.
And then I think you and I, Alice, we spoke about Tuesday is your specific Salesforce day. Can you speak to that, so then that way people understand how the link works and why it's important to use?
Definitely. Yeah. So just the breakdown of my team's week, just in general. Monday, like I said, we have, Milbus. Tuesday, we work on Salesforce. Wednesday, Waterfront. Friday, we do State Street. One thing I also talked to Catherine and Liz about, our Thursdays I leave kind of open for community responses. So please feel free to reach out on the link or directly to me, and I can get my staff members, especially on Thursday, a little more flexible. I really try to have their workflow set out for them and have specific times and areas. And I can always fluctuate that. So whether it's a morning Milpas that we do on Monday and want to fluctuate that to an afternoon, if I have the time frame ahead of time. So like if you guys let me know today, maybe next Monday would work out good to see them in the afternoon, then I can there's more than enough time now to put that on their workflow for Monday, where they can be out there, after their lunch, for 2 to 3 hours at that time, just being in that local area. Besides that, Monday is a great day to get any areas that we can reach out that you guys would like us to identify on the east side, so we can go out there. And then we get the updates from Salesforce on a daily every morning. So we really have a day specific to that. But of course, throughout the week, when there's times and needs that we can fit in those, we definitely do those all throughout the week. But Thursday is definitely the other day where, we can definitely, add some more time, to any needed areas. So please reach out to me with those areas that you might see while you're walking through your local area. Put them on Salesforce, or like I said, contact me directly. But the Salesforce link is the best way to go because I get it every single morning. And if it's more of an urgent matter that you would like that you run into in that late afternoon, after hours, we want to be able to get to that area, early in the morning. So I usually look at it around 7:30 in the morning myself, get it to my staff around 8 o'clock. And if there's any areas of concern that need them, they're able to usually, I don't want to promise something I can't deliver. I'm usually able to get to that area that morning. Okay, but that's kind of how that goes. The one next step that I am working on, I did talk to Catherine and Liz about, and this would be a community thing. I know I asked Catherine to kind of take a lead on it, but just be able to now familiar ourselves with whether it's front desk individuals that work at hotels in the area, or for you guys, it's primarily businesses, right? I know when I was at PATH, they have a list, and hopefully Odin has that list still, where it had like a lot of the business owners or managers. It probably needs to be updated since I left, but of who we can contact at the business. Because I think the connection that we want to start bringing, that I know that worked for me when I was providing outreach and stuff with PATH, was the relationships I was able to build with the owners and the workers there. So when a response comes in, we go to the response. Many times we go on to the next, request, right? But then the business owner or the employee, they just see that Al moved along, that was maybe, causing a little ruckus because he was intoxicated in front of, the gas station. But then 2 days later, Al is right back in front of the building. So they look at it like, oh, did anything happen? Right? So there's a disconnect there. And that's what we're going to attempt on our end as much as possible, to have my staff, after, resolving, whatever the concern is, or hopefully providing some shelter, then go follow up with the business hopefully someone, and that's what I need help with, is, a point of contact 8 to 5 primarily, right, during business hours, where we can go say, hey, Susie, it's Al over here, with CityNet. We just stopped by, we got the call about the individual in front of your business. We just want to let you know we were around in here. So the same information that the owner or city or whoever is getting this information of the complaints, they also can now, from that same individual, be able to get the information, say, oh, CityNet stopped by, Good Samaritan stopped by, Path stopped by, that, we're able to now get both sides of the story, right? That we see that things are being done. Along with that, when we see that Al's coming 2 days later and the problem is continuing, and CityNet and Good Sam and Path are continuing to go out there and do our part, then that's when we all know that maybe the concern is now needs to be raised to the next level. So it kind of gives a parameter, like a temperature of where this situation or this individual is at. So that's one thing that, like I said, I've talked to my team about. I know I've let Liz and Catherine know about. I think is one of the missing links that I'm beginning to see, that can hopefully bring it together so that we're getting all pieces of the story. And they know that between Path, Good Salmon, and CityNet, we're doing our work as far as outreach and serving the community the best that we can. So that's one thing that we're going to begin putting together. And that for my staff, I've talked to them about, reaching out to someone that for the businesses, or someone locally, if we happen to, see them there and they made the concern onto the link,
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, that was as I've been working with some of the business owners or hotel owners on the waterfront. I think that was a big need that I was getting feedback on, was just who to contact. And I know that at some point, we always try to give everyone those resources, but with staffing changes, new contract changes, that information changes. And so we're trying to kind of revamp that right now, and making sure that we have all the important points of contact, both for business owners and their managers, as well as outreach providers and their staffing. So businesses and workers know who to contact. Again, though, the encampment link is really the one, the first avenue that we always want to use first. It really helps with the overall data collection because it maps out where those encampments are. And so I think long term or over time, we're able to see any trends of clusters in certain areas. So then that allows us to work with outreach providers to support those areas on a more regular basis. So we always want to use that encampment link first. If there's a more immediate need, I think that outreach providers have always been very open and welcoming. They'll give their contact information, so you're always welcome to reach out to them. But then I think too, something that is kind of always comes up in these conversations as well is just, if it's an illegal activity, if there's laws that are being broken, if it's an immediate health and safety concern, that's going to be a law enforcement response. And I know Charlie was able to just hop on now. So if you want to speak to that a little bit more, because I think, that's always that distinction of, when is appropriate outreach response versus law enforcement.
Yeah, sorry for joining a little bit late, and I think I'm trying to catch up in the conversation here, but just in general to speak what you're describing. Yeah, I think anytime that there is a public safety component to it, where either illegal activity is occurring, or there's a safety element to it that is impacting businesses or the general community in that area, my suggestion would be that those be reported to law enforcement, and we can come in, see what we can do to mitigate those issues. I think as a matter of just general best practice, we're constantly networking and working with our partners, many of which are on this call now. So that response, even if it's law enforcement on the front end, has resources attached to it as well, just by our policy and general best practice. So I guess, like, to wrap it up or summarize it, anytime public safety is of a concern, or we feel like there's a threat or an issue that law enforcement would be best suited to handle, please either report through a non-emergency, or if it is in fact an emergency, through 911. And again, for general ongoing issues, emails or phone calls to either myself or Sergeant Payne, who's our street unit supervisor. Those are effective routes because we like to look at those problems and try to generate a solution to them in the long term. And so that would be my best recommendation, Captain.
Thank you. And sorry, I know you just logged on and don't want to put you on the spot, but are you able to give us an update just on the more recent patrols on the east side, and just any activities that you're seeing or have been able to support in?
Yeah, sure. Actually, since our last update, which was about 2 weeks ago, our general posture remains the same. So our the vast majority of our proactive enforcement is occurring during daytime hours. So that's from like 6 to about 4 in the afternoon. The team that handles that is largely on bikes. We do the entire city, but the Memphis corridor, the Cacique area primarily, and the labor line have been focuses on the east side. We've made several arrests for mostly drug-related offenses, but what we're trying to do is work with the business community there to identify specific issues and deal with those specific issues in hopes to mitigate some of the ongoing problems that we're seeing there. One thing that has been in fact impactful, like perhaps not in a very positive way, is that we had 5 officers go out injured over the last week and a half. Why I bring that up is because that has pushed our street crime unit, which deals with a lot of these issues proactively, back to patrol to backfill for minimum staffing. So that proactive team has been a little bit less present for the last 2 weeks, but that's looking on the up and up as they return as of this week and next week back to their normal duties. So we should see them resume those primary patrols. Again, our focus being the Cacique area, Milpas corridor, and the labor line.
Thank you for that. And then I know Al and CityNet was giving a brief update there. So I don't know if there's any other specific questions specifically to CityNet. If not, I'm hoping Odin, if you're able to update on your recent efforts and some of the work that you've been doing.
100%, yeah. So since we've last talked, I've now engaged with 56 individuals, with 16 enrolled in my program, up from 40 and 10 last time. The 16 of which I'm currently working to get either document ready, enrolled in a program like PATH or Good Samaritan or Salvation Army, or increase their income. For the past 2 weeks, outreach has been consistently hitting all of their beats, including South Milpas, the overpasses, Dwight Murphy, Thursday Chase Prom Park, the volleyball court, skate park, waterfront, and Yalanali, and of course, Cacique. Additionally, I'm starting anew the demographics report so that we can see how the demographics on the waterfront of the east side have shifted and where more support may be necessary. General trends that I've seen has been in the area has been a decrease of houseless individuals in the morning on Cacique due to increased law enforcement presence, especially on Cacique, many of whom have moved towards the waterfront or onto the railroad tracks or just out of my beat entirely. Ever since CityNet and PATH have started the Wednesday joint Spanish outreach, I've seen increased interaction and eager participation between homeless outreach services and individuals that speak Spanish as the primary language. Places we've surveyed so far include the waterfront, Chase Pump Park, and Dwight Murphy. Finally, I'm working with my supervisors on streamlining the process of getting my clientele into PATH. Currently, there's a fair bit of hoops to jump through, but with those removed or moved towards like the back end, the process of getting people off the street should be quicker, especially in and around the area. Hopefully, this will show that PATH is dedicated to serving the east side in particular, but reducing the number of individuals wandering the east side and placing them somewhere where they can rest indoors and get the care that they need. Of course, to assure our neighbors, our neighboring businesses, I've been reporting any and all illegal activity that I see on my outreach rounds. Any that I cannot report immediately for one reason or another are filed online and with the records being printed. Now to talk about some success stories. We have 4 cumulative individuals from the east side that have entered into PATH, one of whom was actually brought up recently during the RAP 4 weeks ago. The one who lingered around, I believe, Veronica's panaderia. I've had another one of my clients successfully entered into the Salvation Army, and 2 clients successfully housed via our rapid rehousing program. This was a 70-year-old couple that frequently bounced between the Carpinteria and the East Side as of September, I believe. One was a former behavioral health nurse and the other a businessman, but after a major lawsuit forced them to sell their home, they were forced to live in their car. This is the first time ever they were homeless, and they didn't really have much guidance. But however, they did have funds, but not enough for deposit on an apartment. But after getting them document ready, it was a long, grueling process of going through like their storage and all that stuff. I referred them to our rapid rehousing manager and quickly got them the funding for an affordable apartment of their choice, and they should be moving in pretty soon.
Love it, Owen.
I know
Thank you, Al.
that's, and I think that's part of also the next portion of trying to map the East Side region of who's out here is really trying to set those benchmarks of street exits. I know SB Act with CityNet on a city level have the goal to have 100 street exits per year. And we're well on our way of hitting that benchmark. But, obviously that's why the regional action plans exist, is we want to focus on one region specifically. And so trying to set specific benchmarks for the East Side is going to be the next phase that I'm hoping that we can probably talk through next week. So it's already good, or I'm glad to hear that you're already making those street exits though, and connecting people to shelter and to the resources that they need that are going to ultimately get them off the streets. I had a question for the Spanish speaking day specifically, like how is that going? I know that tends to be a challenging population to serve, especially when it comes to folks that are undocumented. And so just kind of seeing how that's going, if you're, what are some of the resources that are primarily being needed within that population, or just any barriers, things like that.
Sure. Well, I guess the most prescient barrier that I know is just the language barrier between me and my clientele. But having that, those fluent speakers who know the culture, know the individuals, are able to really connect with them on a deeper level than I can, and maybe can refer them out to different services, is just really been really productive. Just having that dedicated day, and then even after that day, whenever I do my follow-up visits to see how they're doing, how they if they want to enroll in PATH services, I've been seeing a lot more interaction with regards to that, because when they see my face, they see that oh yeah, he's not here to trick me or anything like that. He's not here to for any ill will. It's really having that fluent speaker available just shows that, hey, we're actually out here being and we actually want to help you guys out, whether it's getting you your documents, go through I believe the Good Samaritan's diversionary services, or just trying to find like employment or any other of those things. Just having that person on hand who hasn't show that we're really honest and not putting on a front is just it's been invaluable, actually.
And then I'm not sure if you all have been referring people to the NNC at the rescue mission, but I've definitely, well, that's great, because I've definitely have noticed some of those more of the Spanish speaking population trickling in and trying to get connected to resources. I know this week I was able to connect someone to Good Samaritan's outreach team, Fernando. He's Spanish speaking, so he was able to just jump in and sit down with that individual and have a conversation about what he needed, and then make the appropriate referral. So I'm definitely noticing them wanting to engage at the NNC more. So I think that's great. Obviously, it shows that you all are making that connection and letting them know that there are resources available for them. And then Anais, I see you on the call. If you have some updates in terms of outreach from your team.
Good morning, everyone. General updates are we're just still doing outreach. I am down one of our employees, so that's been making things a little bit difficult because I do have a team in IV Goleta, and then I have the other team in Santa Barbara and Carp. So we've been just shuffling some stuff around, making sure we're trying to reach all our spots. Trying to make sure that our clients are document ready. And like Odin said, right, that's the grueling part. Engaging clients sometimes is the easy part, but after you've learned their stories and built rapport with someone, now we get to the nitty gritty. And hey, do you have an ID? You know, something as simple as an ID that most of us take for granted because we have those things. Now you're doing IDs, documents, passports, all that stuff, right? To be able to do our end goal, which is either permanent housing, shelter, or anything like that. So we're doing a lot of document readiness right now, engaging obviously our English speaking clients. And like you mentioned, we have a pretty large amount of monolingual Spanish clients. And out of the 7 people that I have on my team, more than half of them are bilingual. So that was something that was super important to me. So Odin, if you're out there and you need some quick translation, make sure to reach out to us. I know that Fernando is bilingual, and Christopher is also bilingual. He did some outreach abroad for quite a while. So if you need something like that, you know, reach out to us.
Yeah, go ahead, Landon.
I was just going to ask, Anais, are you able to share at all about just regions that your team has been visiting recently on the east side?
Yeah, let me pull up Fulcrum. I'd spoken previously to Catherine. I think it was like last week. What's today, Friday? Actually, I think it was a couple days ago on the phone. And trying to really illustrate that there's regions that we need to stick to. So like CityNet is on here. I believe Al is still on here. So there's just specific areas that Good Sam is allowed. I don't think allowed is the right word, but we're supposed to stick to these areas, right? And a lot of the areas that are near path are CityNet's territory. So we just try to stay out of those areas just to be mindful and not, you know, step on anyone's toes. And then they do the same thing for us. I wish that you guys had access to Fulcrum so you can see literally lines through the city that says, you know, this is your area and that is mine.
And I think for just to also jump in and support, there are various contracts for outreach providers from the city, from the county, and then those contracts dictate where outreach is supposed to focus. And so PATH kind of lies into that territory along the 101 corridor and the railroad track. And so that's a specific CityNet contract, the SURF contract. So their team is dedicated to be the ones to support the 101 corridor along the railroads. So that's why, and that's kind of the balancing game of this work of navigating the contracts and the expectations, and then working with all of the providers to make sure that those areas are covered along with whatever is required. So it's a challenge, and we're working with, like Annie said, like I've been working behind the scenes with CityNet, PATH, and Good Samaritan of finding that balance of how we can all work together to make sure that the entire city is being covered on a consistent basis. So, but just so everyone knows, those are the conversations that are taking place. And it is, though, unfortunately, it can be a challenge to be able to navigate those specific contract requirements. But sorry, Anais, if you want to continue.
No, I mean, that was basically the gist of it. Thank you for explaining that. There's just areas that I can't really go into. And a lot of it, unfortunately, right now is close to PATH and in that area, right? Which is basically the east side. So to generally answer your question, Landon, there's a lot of areas in that space that I cannot go into.
And then I know we you know, we always host community concerns, but this is as we are consistently getting updates from outreach on a regular basis here, you know, anyone feel free to ask questions of some, you know, just efforts that outreach is having, any barriers or just specific questions that you may have for them. This is definitely an opportunity. We always want to have that door open for everyone, or to bring up any areas of concern. I know we've already identified some, for instance, the McDonald's region, Dwight Murphy. So if you're seeing any areas that are newer outside of those areas that are really needing support, you can always bring those up during the meeting.
One thing I was going to ask Anais, do you think I can get the contact information? I think you said Fernando and Chris, just for my staff. So just like I said, with all of us, especially having different areas and all that stuff, that even if we get you guys get a call or something like that for an area that you guys aren't covering, that you can get in, you know, contact with us and vice versa. Because of course, like I said, just because of projects and how they work, I completely understand, you know, how, you know, the lines and all that stuff. At the end of the day, I always wanted to just, my outlook is just support, right? Being able to, the community to take advantage of having 3 outreach providers is an amazing factor. So be able to utilize that to the best of our ability to be able to give the best results for the community is definitely the way I look at it. So being able to at least contact them, you know, or have the staff, and that's what I really love. That's why, like with Odin, I know he's able to get in contact with Christina, and I know I'm hoping they already have their information, but I would love to have it as well, because I get a lot of the concerns. And whether it's someone that's bilingual that can be a service or assistance, or if it's in a certain area that we don't cover, or you guys cover, vice versa, we're able to relay that information as quickly as possible, just to have a fluid process for the community.
Yeah, of course. I will text message you that information now.
Awesome. Thank you, Anais.
Of course.
Hey, Jonathan, you can go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to kind of add, because I know that as we're kind of talking about this, especially, you know, acknowledging Natasha's comment in the chat, that this is not about like turf and territory. I think what this is really about is a coordinated outreach effort to minimize duplication, which was done in the past. And so I just kind of want to put that out there, because I think part of how we're talking about it might come across a certain way, but I think what we find across the board is that the best practice is to have a coordinated effort together to minimize duplication and have conversations around people who are going into different sections. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jonathan.
Right. If there are no other questions for outreach providers, or just even, oh, Natasha, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, thanks for answering that, Jonathan, because it certainly sounded like, quote, territories were being established. And I understand duplication and redundancy, so it makes sense. But I think if you guys are focusing on the service and clients and community first, then you naturally won't have that, quote, duplication. But I don't know, you know better. What I wanted to talk about real quickly is the encampment that was on Gutierrez that was going to be taken care of has moved over to Quarantina. And there's another one on the other side of Gutierrez on Quarantina as well. So if you guys would take a look at that, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely, Natasha. Is there a cross street, Quarantina and Gutierrez, you said?
Yeah, that was Quarantina and Gutierrez on the east side.
Right.
So one on the, I guess, south Quarantina, one on north Quarantina, but both on Quarantina, just very close to Gutierrez. So I'm just saying the one guy who was on Gutierrez moved. And I forget who was looking after that one, but he just moved. And then there's another one on the other side.
Yes, Natasha, I visited that individual yesterday and El Ortiz and his team were able to assist to get him in a path yesterday. So he was gonna store some of his stuff across the street by Ray's shop there. I don't know if he was able to get it inside. Ray's shop was gonna allow him to store his stuff because he does help him out. But I will go check on that camp that you're referring to this morning.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And then Jonathan, not to put you on the spot, but there was a request that I had emailed to you to discuss your security schedule within PATH and kind of just what that currently looks like. Now, there was kind of just a concern that took place in near PATH and stuff. And so we're just trying to understand what your security schedule is like.
Yeah, so we have security 24/7, but the security is focused on the property as well as the facility. So they unfortunately don't go beyond the facility and the property just because that's kind of what we've developed a contract for, and it just gets really challenging when it kind of goes beyond that, how far our bounds are in terms of what they're providing security for.
I don't know if folks were able to hear. It was a little choppy there. Okay, I think Jonathan, I don't know. I don't think we were able to hear you. It was a little.
Sorry, I'm in a really bad area right now. I was just sharing that our security is with it's with Allied Universal, and so they're a partner, a security partner that we work with. And they're contracted to provide us security on the facility and on the property, so they don't go beyond that, unfortunately. And I think the challenge that we've seen in the past with kind of doing beyond our property as well as how far then do the sort of like the limits go of what they provide security to. But I think our concern is that like the primary need is on the immediate property and within the facility. So unfortunately, we can't really go beyond that.
Well, I think, Jonathan, what you can do is you can reach out to the neighboring businesses and property owners and get a collective contract for Allied if they're concerned. So you can expand that, because otherwise you're just moving the problem. And part of your problem is you've got neighbors who are unhappy with the way things are going there. So it's not quite a satisfactory answer, but I think you can find one by going to talk to people.
So I think if I hear what you're saying is maybe having a discussion about creating a larger pot of money from the community to invest in security in the community.
Yeah, this is Susie from Marburg. Jonathan, I think that is what I know some of us, including AJ Ramirez, is looking for is, coming together as a joint effort, because we are seeing some issues of a more recent in terms of the safety and wellness of our employees.
I think that's a great discussion to be had. We're totally open to being a part of that conversation. I don't know maybe what next steps we can take to do that.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Liz put in the chat that the downtown organization has done that before in the past. So I know specifically I'm going to be meeting with them next week. And so that's something I can bring up of how they went about that, and or just, who needs to be involved in that conversation, and, working with PATH and then maybe the city or just some of the businesses to start that process. Well, we have 10 minutes left, and we had a couple of announcements that we wanted to get through. So if there are no other questions, as always, you can always reach out to.
I just wanted to pop one thing in. So for Jonathan, I think your first step is you reach out to Allied. You ask them what an expanded contract would look like with this particular vision of the community and find out. And then the next step after that, if they can do it or not do it, is to reach out to the business community. Sorry, guys, I'm walking.
All right.
I think it would be helpful to maybe have the meeting first with the business community, Natasha, only because whatever it is that I discussed with Ally is going to be based on the scope that we present to them. So I think it would be helpful to talk about like what the business community is interested in seeing, and like are we talking about certain hours a day? How many security are we talking about? And then I can get the price and come back to the group.
Yeah, and SBAC will definitely support in that process, however we need to. So I think this is a great idea, and we'll definitely try to move forward with it. And then Natasha, if you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think you need to go to the business community with their options first. That's all I'm saying. Otherwise, you're making it a chicken or egg thing because you don't know what they're able to do. So I suggest in the meantime, before you get a whole business community meeting, you just do your due diligence, do the homework, find out what Allied can and can't do, and then you've got options to present.
Yeah, and I think we'll definitely take all of this into consideration and try to map out what the best route is. But thank you. I think that's a great suggestion, though. We'll definitely be looking into it as an option. And so for our announcements, our next wrap is going to be on, what date? On 11/18, so 2 weeks from now. And we were hoping to have a site visit. I don't know how the group feels about that. I was thinking Dwight Murphy is kind of one of those areas that is consistently brought up. So maybe heading to that area. I know there's benches there, and so it could be a site visit where we're talking about how we can support that area. But then also, maybe have a smaller discussion around the benchmarks that we want to set for outreach for the region in terms of street exits and some other goals that we want to see to move forward. I don't know how that sounds to the group, or if there's another area along the Milpas, like Upper East Side, more inland, like Nopal Street, those areas that people want to see. But I don't know how that sounds. Open to suggestions, but we always want to do site visits, neighborhood walks on a regular basis, and we're due for one now. So I got one thumbs up. Any other general feelings about that?
I missed the location. Could you repeat it, please?
Dwight Murphy.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds great. So we will, and it'll be at the same time. So Friday the 18th, 10 a.m. I was gonna say we can bring lunch and sit and talk and kind of start planning some of these things out, but it's a little early. So maybe just coffee and donuts. And just, again, that's one area that is consistently brought up of needing support. So we want to talk about that and then maybe overflow into the bird refuge a little bit, because they're right next to each other. So how we can support those areas, and then just start looking at the benchmarks that we want to see for the East Side. So I'll be sending out that email to everyone as well. And then SB Act is going to be contracted with the County of Santa Barbara to help plan and administer this year's point-in-time count. So the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development mandates that each continuum of care holds a biannual point-in-time count for people experiencing homelessness. It typically takes place in January. As of right now, there is not a date set. So once we have that date set, we will definitely be letting everyone know. But in 2019, the Santa Maria, Santa Barbara Continuum of Care started holding our local point in time count on an annual basis to just help with better data collection, to see if there are trends of people experiencing homelessness. So that is what the point in time count is. So SB Act is going to be helping coordinate South County region specifically. And we have a planning meeting that is taking place on 11/14 via Zoom. So that's Monday, the 14th at 12:30. And so we want to give the community an opportunity to be a part of that planning process. So if you're interested in joining that, you can email me and I will send that link to you. And this is just we're really in the planning stages right now. So if you're wanting to volunteer, this meeting is not that. We will be announcing how people can sign up to volunteer for the actual day. This is the planning meeting where we're trying to, locate and secure facilities for the logistics centers, develop a volunteer recruitment, training, and deployment strategy, how we can engage people with lived experience to participate as well, what those trainings would look like. So it's very, the planning for the logistics of how the point in time count is going to look. Landon, I see your hand up.
I just wanted to stress what you were saying, that the importance of the point in time count can't really be underplayed, that this count helps us to get funding for homelessness initiatives and from the state and from the federal government as well. And so if we undercount the number of people that are experiencing homelessness in our city, we lose out on funding that we could have otherwise had. So obviously we will want people to volunteer for the count in January, but yes, we would love assistance with planning the count as well. So anyone who's interested, November 14th at 12:30 p.m.
Yeah, Natasha, you can go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, I noticed one of the major problems with this particular thing is the questions, the length of time, and some of the questions don't get at answers that we need. What is the room to be able to impact the actual questions on the survey?
Thank you for that. We've been getting a lot of that feedback in our other recent RAP calls. For instance, we had one on State Street earlier this week, and that was brought up as well. We will bring that to the planning meeting. I think from our conversations with the county that there are limitations as to what we can change. There are specific things that HUD mandates that just unfortunately we're not able to. And we will bring that to them and see exactly like what we're able to change, like how much flexibility there is. But yeah,
like I said, there are a bunch of flaws, and it's really obvious to me that it hasn't been designed by somebody who does this kind of a thing. It's sort of a hodgepodge of, we want to ask a bunch of stuff, and I don't think it's conducive to the information that you want to get from this population. It's been too long, and there are questions that aren't structured properly, and I think there are serious things that are missing. So if there's room to impact that, please let me know how to do that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then feel free, if I would love to hear what questions you think are important to capture. So we can chat offline about that, and then I can take that to the group and see if those are possibilities to incorporate.
Thanks, Catherine. We'll do that.
Yeah, so that'll be Monday the 14th at 12:30 p.m. That'll be our first planning meeting. So if you all are interested, you can email me and I will add you to the group. And then we have a couple of minutes left. So we wanted to announce that we have a new staff member, and he's on the call here today, Eric Meyer. He's joined us. He just started on Wednesday. And he will be our program coordinator. So he will be operating our neighborhood navigation centers. So working with providers to just bring those services to the neighborhoods and how we can support clients, as well as supporting in other ways, but that'll be one of his primary functions. I don't know if Eric, you just wanted to introduce yourself really quickly or add anything.
No, just happy to be here and look forward to meeting everybody in person, hopefully.
Well, that'll be our next RAP meeting. Will be in person at Dwight Murphy. So that'll be a great opportunity for you all to meet him as well. And then we have our all call. Oh, Landon, you had your hand up.
No, just wanted to say also, Rich Sander, our executive director, said he gave his regrets he couldn't be here today, but he'll be, I think he'll be there at our next RAP meeting as well.
Right. And then last announcement, we have our all call RAP meeting on the 17th. So Wednesday in the afternoon is where we bring all the regions together to talk about some progress that's being made, some larger strategies that need to be deployed citywide. So that'll be taking place on 11/17 Wednesday. And I will be sending out that invitation. If you would like to make sure that you're included in that, you can email me as well and we'll be adding you. And that's all for today. We ended exactly at 11, perfect timing. Appreciate you all being here and for the conversation, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.